Hello and welcome to Find Your Freedom, a podcast dedicated to helping you truly find freedom in all aspects of life. Join your hosts and their expert guests as they share practical tips and strategies for finding more freedom in your life. It's time to take control of your life and create the future you want. Let's find your freedom. Here are your hosts, Lenny the Boss and Omid Rad Investor.
Check this out. Welcome back. We have another fantastic episode of Find Your Freedom. And we have a fantastic guest with us today. Cool guy that I met, Omid met through just conferences, and we just stayed in touch, and it just means so much to bring him on. But before we bring him on, right, we have something free for you. It's a Freedom Kit. It's free and it's easily downloadable. All you have to do is go to www.findyourfreedom.com/freedom kit. That's right. www.findyourfreedom.com/freedom kit. It's free, easily downloadable. It'll help you on your journey. You need it. Get it today. All right. So with that being said, man, let me tell you, this guy, right? He's super funny and he flexes on me all the time, right? So one, he's a world traveler. We're gonna get into that and just what he loves to do. He called me from the yacht. Right. Just say, hey, man, are we still on for the podcast? Right. I said, absolutely, man. But he's a really good guy, music lover, content creator. He's a co-founder of probably one of the coolest names to a company that you can imagine, Rome to Rome. So we're going to get into that shortly. Obviously, he's a short-term rental owner. He's a host. Man, just a badass dude. He got some properties he recently purchased that's badass. We're going to jump into that. So what's up, man? How you feeling?
I'm good. How are you feeling?
Oh, man, feeling amazing. First and foremost, man, I'm happy that you're able to come on the show. And we don't have guests here. We have friends. So, you're a friend, of all of ours. And we just want to rock it today. So before we jump into anything, if you could, just give a little background on yourself.
A little bit about me. Air Force veteran, 9 years. Got out in 2014. Decided to travel the world for a little while. Then I got the bug. And then from there, came back home to Chicago and started my short-term rental career. Rented an apartment that was way too expensive for myself, so I started Airbnb-ing out the second bedroom, and it kind of rolled downhill from there. Did that for a few years and started buying my own properties. Now portfolio is growing. We're going international. So our first property was in Mexico that we bought. Well, our first international property is in Mexico, and then we keep it expanding outside the country this year.
Man, okay, so you decided you're going to travel. You get this apartment, and then you're like, hey, I gotta kind of make some additional income to kind of cover some of these expenses, and you kind of fall into short-term rentals. So walk us through, like, as you are going through that process, maybe like the first step in like deciding, hey, I'm gonna do another one, and like kind of walk us through like that thought process, because I think sometimes people get into it, but then they're hesitant on maybe like transitioning and growing it as a business.
Definitely. When I first started, it was out of necessity. My rent was too expensive, so I needed some help. And from there, I started to learn that I'm paying 75% of my rent, 80% of my rent, and it's like I can duplicate this over again. So from there, it just got to a point of like I need to start looking for places that make sense, close to public transit in Chicago, and finding something that makes sense in the city. So I started finding places, and at the time it was easy. A lot of regulations were down. So I found places, started renting them out, started co-hosting for other people, started rent by the room. I actually started that for a while, and just finding every possible revenue I can out of a house.
Awesome. And listening to what you're saying, I'm pretty sure a lot of people go to the same thing, right? Like they go out, they get an apartment, and they're like, "Man, this rent is crazy." and some people don't think of, "Wow, you know what? I can actually rent another room." So now, were you single at the time? Were you married? Tell us a little more about that, because I think that's going to sit here and kind of help some things out as well.
So I started single. I did it for a few years single, and then I met my girlfriend at the time. Then to become a wife, and then I convinced her to do the exact same thing. rent out the second bedroom. We have our space, and then the Airbnb guests have their space. So I convinced my wife to do it with me, and I did that for like another 3 years until we started to buy stuff ourselves.
I like that because I think of it as kind of like um, a version of like house hacking, but on steroids, because essentially, you have
Yeah.
somebody coming in. And I know when I first started my journey, my wife and I, we moved into our house, and the house was a little bit too big for us. And we're like, can we afford this? And right away, we started house hacking, but that I think led to other ventures. So I guess like, talking about kind of, you started kind of like locally. How did you decide, hey, I'm going to go to a different location and start investing in short-term rentals? Like, how do you even do that? Because so many people are afraid of that.
Basically, I went to Mexico. I traveled to Mexico many, many times. I got the bug that someone's like, you can buy down here. And I'm like, no, you can't. So then I contacted the agent, and she was like, yeah, you can do it. You can put a down payment. You can pay the builder. We had the place built over time. So we had like a couple of years to pay off the loan or get funding for the loan. And we just kind of went from there. And then when you start opening the door, you try to find the other countries that allow me to have some sort of loan and I can keep it going.
Man, that's amazing because I think a dream for a lot of people, including myself, is obviously to own something outside of the country and to own it and then be able to make money off of it. So, can we just talk about that just a little bit? Like, you got conventional financing here in the States, right? Where traditional, you can do all these different types of creative loans now. What is different with purchasing that home from a finance perspective in Mexico?
Mexico itself doesn't allow foreigners to have loans, so that makes it complicated. So obviously the developers of these properties know that too, so they started to get smarter, and they wanted to be the bank, so they're carried a loan for you for the next 5 years with a balloon payment.
Got it. So like, yeah, I think this is really interesting because I think a lot of people don't realize one of the big advantages of being in the States is like all the different loan products out there. And, I think sometimes the bottleneck to, going international, of course, regulations but the financing piece. So, how do you even source deals? So like, let's say you went out there for vacation. How do you find a developer?
You go for a longer time. I go to places for months on end. That's the best part of it. Then it's a tax incentivized. So like this year we're going to Argentina. We went to Argentina earlier this year. We went to Argentina, going to Argentina again for another 3 months, and we're scoping out places to look to find and finding a developer, finding a new build, and try to do the exact same thing all over again.
So can I interrupt you just real quickly on that? Okay. So you're saying, hey, I operate this business and I can work anywhere I want, and so I'm just choosing a place so that I want to live. And so why Argentina?
It's a lot cheaper than you think, and it's beautiful country. It's people don't realize that it's a massive, like 14 million people city in Buenos Aires. It's amazing, and you can find something for very cheap.
Wow, man, we're dropping a lot. I'm taking these notes. I hope you're taking some notes too. Then we can stay with him when he goes to Argentina because he's already going to be there for 3 months. So it ain't gonna be a problem for us. No, but in all seriousness, man, I think you're the first person to come on and talk about buying, actually owning property outside of the United States, and which piques everybody's interest. So, I kind of want to dive a little deeper, man. So, all right, Argentina, Mexico, like, what do you actually do? Who do you talk to? Are the steps the same in the US, or do you have to take different steps when you outside the US? So can you kind of go in depth on that end of the stick? Because honestly, I don't even know where to start.
The funny enough, I found my first agent on a TV show that came on. Her name popped up, and I'm like, okay, I'm going to contact you directly. And then contacted her, got started to work with her directly, and started Get Your Core 4 through her. And I got my attorney, got my everything through her. So it kind of worked that way. So I started to try to do it again, finding an agent that's friendly to investors, foreign investors, and started to use their network.
Gotcha. So, all right. So let's. So I want to kind of go back to Mexico just a little bit, because I think Mexico is just a very
Yeah.
local, but also very popular type of destination for people in the States. And so, there's, of course, you visit, the different resorts that are out there, but then there's also lots of Airbnbs. So how do you
Hmm.
do your research on deciding, hey, maybe this area within an international area is going to do well, from like a ADR perspective, because maybe there's like yeah, the local currency, it could be a concern, or I'm sure the expenses are different, but how do you, I guess, do your underwriting component of that as you go through that process?
Yeah, when looking at the numbers, start looking at the development of the area. Like obviously, you're getting a cheaper price because you're going into an area that's still developing. We're in Tulum. Tulum is getting an airport soon, getting a train soon. So it's one of those scenarios where you know that the property values are going to skyrocket and more accessible to Americans. So you get in a little bit early, and you're in a situation where you can rent it out at a decent price now, but you know in the next 2 years when that airport is built, it's going to jump because the flow of traffic is going to increase by a lot.
Absolutely, man. Dude, like I think I got to start riding on these yachts with you, man. You know where to go, what to do. But I guess like I'm a compare guy, right?
Hmm.
Because for whatever reason, that works well in my head. I understand the rules and regulations when it comes here to United States. So I'm comparing it to, okay, this Mexico deal. So are the down payments still the same? And you talked about property value, right?
Hmm.
So can you still do the same cash out rules there? I mean, because I heard earlier you mentioned, they don't loan money to foreigners. So, like, can you talk a little bit about that?
Definitely. The property itself, yeah, it does. I can't do a cash out refi on it because it doesn't have a loan on it. There are partners out there that do loans that I've heard. Um, so it's definitely doing some research to find if you can get. It's practically a hard money lender to some degree, but with fixed terms, and they're able to allow you to take the money out of the country. But you're basically looking at it from that way. Is that how do I get the deal done from that aspect, at least from a loan? But from a developer, it's the same terms: 20% down. Um, the extra 80% is amortized over 20 years, 20 or 30 years, but a 5-year balloon payment.
Gotcha.
Yeah, so that's actually, that sounds more than reasonable, um, considering like how difficult it is to secure loans out in internationally. So okay, so let's say we got the place purchased. Now, yo hablo español, but not everybody habla español, right? So like,
No.
how do you set up the boots in the ground, and even and then do you also have almost like a different type of service, because it's maybe like the labor force is a lot more inexpensive. So how does that look in terms of like hiring, managing, and even like amenities and things like that that you kind of set up for guests?
Um, so Mexico is my only property that I have a external property manager. You can avoid it.
Uh,
It's one of those that you have to give a property manager. But
Mm,
because I do my own short-term rental things, I run everything else. So it's like a dumbed down version of a property manager. I pay them 10% basically, and I take care of the rest. And they're basically doing the cleanings, doing the maintenance, and things like that. So they pay my property taxes, my light bill, they pay everything down there. Um, but I paid them a reasonable amount, and I take up everything else. So it's definitely getting that person. And the only reason I got that person is because I was there for a while, met the people, met the other foreigners. Um, Pro tip: if you go onto Airbnb, find a property that has an American owner, 'cause you normally can see it in their messages, Message them directly, and it's like, hey, how did you do it? How did you get here? How do I get there? And definitely start to take advantage of the fact that people are willing to tell you their journey.
That's cool. That's cool. So, are there any differences in the rules and regulations when it comes to, the short-term rental in Mexico versus, say, one of your properties in Chicago or Pennsylvania?
Chicago is way tougher. Mexico is
Wow.
very lenient. That part of the Mexico Quintana Roo region, it's so open to short-term rentals because that's just it's a vacation spot from Cancun all the way down to Tulum. So they are very friendly when it comes to short-term rentals, and the regulations are very reasonable. Um, there is a permit process that's now coming up, but it's basically just identifying yourself as a short-term rental owner instead of just doing it willy-nilly.
All right, so let's talk about guests. So who's coming to these places? So I know like Tulum is a nomad destination. Like it's become
Mhm.
super popular and it continues to
Yeah.
grow. So I think from like a market perspective, like I'm my understanding it's like a market that's killing it. But who's
Mhm.
actually coming? Like who are these nomads, or like are they local, international? Like where they come from?
My long-term people staying for 2, 3, 4 months, they are digital nomads from the US, and they're just traveling and staying for a long period of time. Most of my weekend travelers are locals, actually. There's people coming from Mexico City, from some other neighborhoods in the city. It's like it's truly like locals.
Interesting. Because I just would have thought it would be not so much local. So wow, like this is really blowing my mind. I'm so happy that you're on because I'm getting educated over here myself. When it comes to just I'm going. So all right, now we have a currency thing going on. We have the dollar, they have the peso. Okay,
Mhm.
so and I believe Omid made an ask, kind of question, kind of from the analyzing the deal perspective. I guess, how do you make sure that the peso make dollars or make sense? I don't know how you're supposed to say that, but how do you make sure that works out the way it should?
Yeah, I'll say conveniently, you can switch like the currency in Airbnb. So like all your bookings come in US dollars. So there's no currency issues or deflation or things like that coming in any issue. So yeah, when a guest pays, they pay in USD, even though the property is in any country. So that definitely makes it a lot easier to deal with the conversions. But definitely what makes sense, um, the prices are much different in Mexico. But also the house prices are much different. Like, people are buying $200,000 villas, and you can't. That same villa will cost over $1 million in the states. So,
Mm,
like when it comes from a price standpoint, like your cash on cash return is pretty high just for the sheer fact that you didn't have to put much in.
interesting.
All right. So, okay. So you did your first proof of concept internationally. You're like, okay, this is
Mhm.
gonna work. And then, so walk us through kind of you're doing the research process. So, what does that research process look like? And then, it looks like you've identified Argentina, but like walk us through that process in identifying Argentina versus anywhere else in the world.
Uh, First thing is will the country allow me to buy? There are certain countries that are not so keen on foreigners buying. There's differently normally ways of getting around it for the most part, legal ways of getting around it. Um, but it's very common. So you end up going to the countries initially that allow foreigners. There's like a list of quite a few high known countries that allow foreigners in, and from there, just starting to see what are the clientele people are you looking for? Are you looking for digital nomads? Are you looking for local family travelers? Are you going to get a condo? Or are you going to get a house? And if you get a house, you got to make sure that you're promoting to families, and are the families that are coming to Argentina high. Um, so Argentina for us is one of those digital nomad lifestyles, and it's meant to be in a smaller space, but it's still a 1,500 square foot apartment, but it's meant for a digital nomad to sit there. It's two workspaces for the spouse, and the husband and wife can work in different rooms and on their computers and everything like that, and have a podcast in one room and be on a video call in the other. So it's set up that way. So I started to track the movement of travelers. You can look up those type of things to say that, hey, the amount of travelers that are digital nomads coming to Colombia has risen two times in the last 3 years, and those are the people you're starting to look for.
Wow. 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 So, like, what's the play when it comes to buying? Like, is the play a cash flow play? Are you seeing that there's much more cash flow, in this I have your property up here, in this Mexico property or Argentina, or is this like a equity play? Because you also mentioned that in Tulum they're getting the airport, they're getting the train, so the property value is going to go up significantly. So what's the initial play here?
Initially, I just want to travel to the places. I get an excuse to travel to Argentina. When you going beyond that, it is definitely, you start to see the amount of money you can make. People are willing to spend U.S. dollars in Argentina, and the U.S. dollar goes a long way in Argentina. So they're willing to spend substantially more because they're used to paying $1,500 a month, $2,000 a month for an apartment here in Chicago. You don't get that in Argentina, or you're trying to buy a mansion. So it's like people are willing to spend more money there because they are using the U.S. dollar.
Interesting.
All right, so Argentina is big, and Buenos Aires is very big. I've heard amazing things, like friends that I've had that have traveled out there. They're like, you can, have like the finest of finest things, and like you said, because of the currency difference, you're just really enjoying life. So, now, what's the plan? So you head out there, and then how do you, I guess, what is the process in establishing the team? Because I know the first time it was like, hey, you saw this infomercial and you call,
Yeah.
and then it kind of began the process. Are you going to do your process any different now that you've kind of had the first experience?
Yeah. It's just going towards agents that are very focused on international travelers. When I go to these countries, they are very well known to be retiree countries. People go there to retire. So there are agents that are specifically looking for the retiree community. So they speak English. They know how to find things. They know what you need because they know that you won't be here at all times. So using those, your core person that you need to get on the ground is your agent, and from there you can get anyone else you need through them.
Wow. So your agent is that person.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, one of the multi benefits of owning real estate is tax advantages and tax breaks, right?
Hmm.
So, you have these properties, Mexico, Argentina, that's outside the country. And one of the luxuries is when we travel to our properties, I'm going to say within the country, your airfare, your rent a car, your lunches, your dinners, your hotel or Airbnb, wherever you stay, is all tax deductible. But then you also can do like cost segregations. You can do save on taxes yearly. Do you still get these same tax breaks, or they're different?
No, because the developer is carrying the loan, so it's not a bank. So all of those, you get the same level of writing off travels and stuff like that, but uses bonus depreciation and cost segregation studies. You don't get all of those extras.
Gotcha.
So what's the plan? So let's say, okay, as far as like operations, so because you're gonna have like part of it is local in the States and part of it is international, part of it is property managed. Like, is there a moment where then you decide, hey, I have to create like a certain type of infrastructure to manage it because there's different time zones and all sorts of things. So like, walk us through that.
It's definitely obviously at the current moment I'm staying in like the central Central South America time area. So from a time perspective, it's okay. But in the next few years, I do want to end up in Europe also. So Spain is on my list. So then it becomes more complicated. But it's definitely starting to get property managers with feet on the ground in that place and started training the VAs that this multiple different VAs that this is your time zone that you're working out of. So it took me way too long of me working doing it myself to realize that you need VAs for everything.
Yeah.
And so now it's like I'm hiring a VA that works in European time zone, or hiring a VA that works in the US time zones.
Good, 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 good. And everybody runs into that. So what was your moment? Like what happened to you to say, "Oh man, it's time to bring people on board"? Because I think a lot of people don't know when. They don't know, like, when is that time? Like, should I do it now and I got one property, or should I do it when I got 15? So when was it for you when you said, I have to start bringing people on board?
The first time you start to stress out, or the first time you missed something that was important, is like if you have kids, you missed the recital, you missed the first recital
Wow.
because you were working. Like I literally in Argentina earlier this year had my alarm go off in my house at like 2 a.m. The guests are in the bed sleeping. She's now calling me. I'm at a bar in Argentina. Like, what do I do now? Like, I don't want to have to deal with those issues. I that killed half of my night. So I'm like, I should just find someone else to do that for me. So once it starts to hurt your personal life, then it's time to find someone to do it for you.
I think that's very powerful. I think there's a lot of investors, and kind of like Lenny said, they don't know when to kind of put in the VA in place. But like you said, it's very important to think about like your lifestyle and leveraging other people's time to then create more time for yourself. And so I
Hmm.
think for us, we waited, I don't know, it was like after 10 listings. But I would advise for listeners or people who are looking to scale, yeah, do it sooner than later, because you got to build your processes out anyways, and that takes time.
Yeah,
So
it's
yeah,
always harder to go backwards. Like I
yeah,
started like writing out the spreadsheets full of everything that the house should need, and it's like it's better to do that on the first one instead of
yeah,
on the 10th one.
yeah, totally. Oh, absolutely, for sure. All right, so um, I guess you also mentioned you're gonna go to the UK I guess before we even got
Yeah,
on the call. So kind of walk us through this lifestyle piece. So to me, it seems like this has become a very strong lifestyle piece. So walk us through that as far as your interest to travel to different places and what you're able to do as a result of this lifestyle that you've chosen.
yeah, yeah. I'm going just for like the weekend. I'm going to London for a Cubs game. They're playing in England, and I'm going there just for a few days. But it's just mostly that being able to have that time freedom. Everyone talks about time freedom, but it's definitely like how do you unlock the time freedom? Like you can get to a point that you're financially free. Like most people are at that point, but you're not time free at all, and that's the stuff that starts to struggle. So I want to be able to get up and go, never worry about the money, but also get up and go and travel to a place. Generally, I am supposed to be home more times. It is Chicago summer. You don't miss Chicago summer, but I'm decided to go traveling during Chicago. Um, but for the most part, yeah, it's just being able to schedule something. Like we have friends that want to go traveling for like the month of September, and it's like normally you can't do that. But I'm trying to get to a place where I can just easily say, "Yeah, I'm going to go. Let's go."
That's awesome. And you know what? Let's talk about that for a little bit, because I think that's admirable. And when people listen to this episode, they're gonna say, "Wow, you know what? I will love that." Now the people in your life, from your family to your friends, to people how is it? Like, are they happy for you? Are they jealous of you? How do you
uh,
do? You're
it
traveling every
definitely
week.
it definitely gets trying. Everybody in real estate knows that people that are not in real estate don't like us that much. We talk too much about it. Like, please stop talking about real estate at my party. Um, um, but it's one of those, like, you never schedule around anyone's birthday, holidays, things like your friends and family come first, and then you travel around that also. But it's definitely like the older you get, you will realize that all your friends separate a little bit. So like a lot of my friends are not in Chicago anymore; they're somewhere close. But if I needed to jump back home to come to something, do anything, I hop back on a plane and come back. That's not the hardest part. It's just being able to structure it, making sure you see friends, making sure you see family. Um, but yeah, it's a balancing act to go between. I'm just gonna go travel the world. I'm gonna go see family. And then you want to still have your friends. If you travel the world too much, you might lose all your friends. So definitely, yeah, structuring the time like this. These are my friend times, Friendsgiving, and New Year's together, birthdays, holidays.
So I guess going along the lines of you've identified kind of this niche. So what is the long-term plan? Is it you're going to continue doing the international piece, or is there you're going to kind of do a combo of the States and international? What's like the
Uh,
vision long term?
this is where I go off here. I will keep growing the international portfolio and more than likely keep that, but I probably will package up all of my short-term rentals and sell majority of them off and go into a different asset class.
Oh wow.
Well, tell us a little bit about that. Why?
Just because the same reasons. I mean, I'm young now. I can still do it. I have VAs doing the work, but you're managing a manager. It's still a job. You're not time free completely. I still have a 1 o'clock meeting with my VAs every Tuesday. So it's still things. So I want to go into an asset class that's a little bit more hands off. And there are a few more out there, but it normally takes a lot of dollars to get into it. So I build up my portfolio here, build up the millions now, and then sell it all off, and then move into an asset classes that when I first started, it was nowhere possible for me to get into.
Gotcha.
I like that idea. I think there's it's good to kind of identify what niche to get into, where you are in your life, and then at some point the ultimate plan is the passive sort of investment, whatever that whatever asset class that is. I know there's like some people who all they do is they just invest in syndications, and they're just passive investors in syndications, and they invest in like 10 20 at a time. But I think
Mm-hmm.
that the idea behind that is it's 100% passive, and you have the time freedom just like you shared. So that's super cool. So maybe just tell us just a little bit about Rome to Rome, I guess.
Yes, Rome to Rome is an interesting macrocosm. It started out as a travel company, which we're still doing, which would make some of this make more sense. And then we branched out and say we want to buy some stuff, so we started buying. So Rome to Rome Spaces came around. We made Rome to Rome Spaces to be our property management, a property company, and so now we're owning properties in the U.S. and around, and it's growing. It's it's crazy to think that where you start and where it just kind of keeps going. I got properties that I haven't been able to list yet, but it's still renovating. But it's meant to be this large platform for you to place your short term rentals on, and you can book directly through and things of that nature.
That's great. That's great. Well, you just mentioned about properties you have not listed yet, and I know one of the things you and I was talking about was a property that you purchased in Michigan. You know, oh yeah, I'm not gonna let you go without talking about this one.
The Michigan property.
Hey, can you give us just a little bit of insight, just how you about the property?
Oh yeah, Michigan is gonna be our largest property. It's around 4,500 square feet. It's massive. It has a indoor pool, a indoor sauna, indoor jacuzzi in Michigan. It's insane. Um, we're renovating it now, trying to get it an Art Deco themed and have people have pool parties and the whole nine. But it's been a way coming. But we ended up buying it from someone. The pool hasn't been used in 10 years. It's in disrepair. Um, but we bought it last year. Been sitting on it for a little while, and now renovations are starting. But this property is should be nuts. At a high, it should rent for almost $1,000 to $1,500 a night. It's one of those, like, you come here for a wedding, the whole family's here. It's a 6-bedroom house, and you come in to enjoy yourself and have a pool party in your own private pool.
No, that sounds like an awesome party. Yeah, I mean, I'm ready to go. So when it's ready, let me know, and we can have a opening party, you know, to the property.
Basically.
Oh, yeah.
I'm already scheduling one in the back of my mind.
There you go.
Grand opening. All right. So this is recorded. You already told us we're on the bills. No going back. No going back now.
So I know we've talked a lot about your story and just kind of your vision, and I kind of want to tie it all together. So, what does Find Your Freedom mean to you?
I talked about it a little bit earlier, but it's definitely being able to enjoy the little things in life and not so much struggle with all the work all the time. As of right now, short-term rentals gets me so far, but I still searching for that true freedom of enjoying it as much. I get to go out and do something midday at 3:00. 3:00 on a Friday. I want to go out to dinner at 3:00 on a Friday and not worry about my cell phone going off and something going wrong.
I love that because, one of the things I have in my head, and I told my wife once, I said, I want to change my days, right? I want to live on the beach, and I want to sit here and be on the beach all day and then work all night. So that's one of the things I have in mind. I'm not sure if I'm fully going to execute that or not, but I'm thinking about that. But hey, obviously you're a wealth of knowledge. You're doing some big things. So I'm pretty sure people are going to say, hey, man, how can people get in contact with you?
You can find me on Instagram, Ditron Corker, at Ditron Corker. So it's pretty easy. It's nice having a unique name. You don't have to put any numbers or anything or in front of it.
You're right about that. I had to put a 723 in the back of mine, right? So I get it. So hey, man, we're coming to the end of the show. Obviously you're doing some big things. So you got to promise right now that you'll be back because we want to hear a little more about the expansion of the overseas portfolio.
Mm-hmm.
Can we get the promise?
Oh yeah.
All right, we got to get a little more.
Yes.
Come on, man.
I'll be back.
All right, my man. So, what we like to do at the end of the show is we like to do this big boom session. All right. So, what we do is on the count of 3, 1, 2, 3, in a uniform manner, all of us are going to say boom. All right. You ready for it?
Ready.
All right, cool. All right. Let me clear my throat. get myself ready, pump myself up for the people who can't see us. All right. On 3. 1, 2, 3. Boom. Boom. Awesome. Check this out. We just had our first international portfolio buyer on board today, and there's just so much to learn from this episode to know that you can now go out the country and there are ways of doing it. I mean, he laid it out. He told you the very first person that you should get in contact with so they can sit there and open all the other doors for you so you can sit here and also become an international buyer and ultimately go out and visit your places and stay there for how long that you desire. So that's super cool. But listen, we need you to listen to this episode, and we also need you to provide us with an honest 5-star review. This is the way that we get more and more and more, not just guests, but more friends onto the show so we can sit here and provide you with that much more value. Now, remember, take this episode and share it with all your friends. Share it with your aunt, your uncle, your mother, your sister, your brother, all your coworkers, all the ones that you like, all the ones that you don't like. Hey, just take the link and just send it to everybody in your contacts. And remember, we have our Find Your Freedom kit that's absolutely free for you, easily downloadable. All you have to do is go to www.findyourfreedom.com/freedom kit. All right. And with that being said, until the next episode of Find Your Freedom, we talk to you soon. Peace.
Bye.
Peace.
Thanks for listening to Find Your Freedom. Be sure to subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts. While you're at it, please help us spread the word by leaving a rating and review and sharing the podcast with friends, family, and colleagues. Until next time, get out there and find your freedom.